Before we get started, we just wanted to say thanks for listening.
Definitely. Thanks a lot for listening. And please rate the Taste Podcast on iTunes. 5 out of 5 would be great. And also leave a comment.
We read the comments and we really like reading them.
Yeah, they're really great. You could tell us what your favorite episode is. You could tell us what favorite dish you make at home is.
Tell us what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right, what else you'd like to hear about. And we love it when you tell your friends about us, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Tell your friends. Share the links. Tweet.
Tell your mom.
Tell your grandmother.
Do grandmas listen to podcasts?
Absolutely. Many grandmothers listen to podcasts. They love the Taste Podcast. We've heard from them in the comment section of the iTunes store. And also write us at hello@tastecooking.com.
If you have ideas about people we should have on the podcast or topics you'd like to hear covered,
we would love to hear from you.
Here's a new episode.
We had Asian bears in the space, and it's a place that we have pretzels and sausages. So let's make that happen. And then something really special happened that I did not think would ever happen. But Kobayashi, who's the champion hot dog eater, was there and doing this photo op, sort of deep throating this hot dog onigiri. And I was like, this is insane.
You're listening to the Taste Podcast. I'm Editor-in-Chief Matt Rodbard, here with Senior Editor Anna Hezel.
On today's show, we have Angela Dimayuga, former chef at Mission Chinese Food in New York and currently the creative director of food and culture at Standard International. We also have Deb Perelman answering a reader question. First of all, Matt, what did you and Angela talk about? What was your conversation like?
Angela, she's so young, but also so accomplished. She's been through so much. She's one of the most creative chefs I know in New York. We talked about the amazing food she was putting out at Mission Chinese Food, this umeboshi and shiso fried rice that is in my restaurant hall of fame. It's one of my favorite dishes ever.
What is she up to now?
Well, she works at the Standard, but she's not just running restaurants. She's running culture there. She's rethinking room service, rethinking what is a hotel restaurant. She's thinking about parties and inclusivity within kind of the party dynamic of hotels. It's a really cool conversation.
Here's Matt talking with Angela Dimayuga.
Angela Dimayuga, thank you for joining the Taste Podcast.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've followed your career for a long time, and I just got to say, dude, nice job. This new job at the Standard sounds amazing.
Yeah, so the project itself is fun. It really related to stuff I was doing personally because I always think about site-specific work or what I would do for a specific event or time and place for what I'm interested in or what's happening politically or what I'm interested or who I'm trying to collaborate with. And that really lends itself well to this new job that I have. The different locations nationally allow for these really fun different activations.
And probably some more internationally. We won't get into that. But let's just say when I observed the rollout of you becoming the creative director of the Standard, I was like, you're not the typical creative director of a hotel group's food and beverage. I mean, it's been this white male straight boys club for most of history. The Thomas Kellers and the Eric Repairs of the world typically get these gigs.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited that you can have this opportunity. Do you feel like this is a unique situation?
Yeah, absolutely. This was never something that I ever dreamed of. I knew that when I was leaving Mission, with my chef role, that what I wanted to do, it couldn't have been anything I thought of. And then when this happened, it was obvious to me that I needed to take it because it was more of a response to the work that I'd been doing just in general, and then a place to do it with a wider platform. Yeah. So definitely never thought of this type of job ever. And specifically with the title, it was always offered to have a creative direction position in food and beverage. But I love that, there was flexibility to make it about what my goals were. And that is to really think about food and culture as something that has to be unified.
Angela, tell me, what is so great about a hotel restaurant? I feel like there's a lot of reasons we go to hotel restaurants, but why do you love working in this world now?
Well, I've always loved hotels. Even when I was a younger cook or thinking about cooking as a profession, I always loved this idea of there are restaurants, it's part of hospitality, and then there are hotels that include restaurants that is another level of hospitality. And I think that there's this opportunity to surprise and delight in a greater way. Like I've spent, when I was a young line cook, I would save all my pennies and do staycations randomly at a hotel at like near the Queensboro Bridge, like just for fun.
Whoa.
And, like,
a nice hotel?
Just like a medium hotel, like a $300 hotel that's like maybe poorly made. But I just like the idea of, you just become like in this different mindset when you're a guest at a hotel. And then I like all the opportunities to have thoughtful offerings. And I think that attention to detail is something I really care about. And, having the task, for example, to think about mini bars, that's super fun. And it doesn't only need to just be about food.
It's not just like McClure's pickles. Like we can move beyond that. I'm sure.
Yeah. It's like having like a cool olive, that's fine. But then it's also about the little objects that you can maybe sell retail that belong in a hotel room. Like something that I want to do is like maybe non-food related. Like think about sex positivity and think about, at cool hotels, people offer condoms, but that's very like, it's not as inclusive. And so, I'm thinking about what are other sex positive objects that we could sell. Like maybe like some like lube or something like that.
Toys?
Yeah, I don't know. I just
with
like
a
that's
Z or something. Yeah,
it's
toys.
like fun to brainstorm that.
Nah,
and
I
like
love
this
it.
is part of my job.
This
now.
is like not what you were thinking about 24 months ago when you were at Mission Chinese, right?
No. And that's why I love doing pop-ups and special dinners because if you're being super creative as a chef, I liked being sort of painted into a corner like, hey, would you like to do this event here for this specific purpose? And then you can make something that you never would have thought of. So I feel like this job inherently is that.
I loved your food at Mission. I just want to know, like, what were some of the dishes that you were most proud of there? I think the menu was rotating. You were like the creative force behind Mission Chinese food. Tell me, what are you most proud of?
Yeah, there are three that I think about a lot. One of them was a red cabbage salad. That was like my first dish that I made.
Cold, right?
Yeah, the cold red cabbage salad. And that was super fun to make there because I was really thinking about how to complement the super spicy Sichuan dishes. And thinking about complementary dishes is, I think, the way that I think about like collaborating with people. Like how can we amplify each other and make it stronger? So there was a cold cabbage salad, and that was really fun and beautiful. And then like later, so it was in my last year that I worked at Mission, we developed this umeboshi fried rice. So it was just Japanese pickled plum and shiso. And the way that we played it made me really excited because I got into this book about 18th century like Swedish dinners, and I like this idea of like ornate plating styles, like the cake or like the rice looked like a cake.
We're talking about rice. Typically, fried rice is in the shape of like a mound.
Yeah,
like and it's like the size of like a softball. But how are you rethinking it?
We were molding this pink rice because it was scented and flavored with pickled plum, which was pink, and molding it into like a flat rice bowl. So it had a flat top, and then doing a chiffonade of shiso, and then putting that around it like a border, and then dotting it with more pickled plum, so it looked like a little cake. But I love that too because that was a way to introduce butter, and dairy in Asian cuisine. That was a fun task for me to think about.
The umeboshi had dairy in it?
Well, we added really nice butter to the rice, and so it added this other layer of richness. Like the dish itself, everyone thought of as like very very light, but with all of the other food, it still was able to stand on its own 2 feet. And a lot of it was because there was like this extra layer of butter that people didn't know about. And I loved to think about how we can sneak things into people's food.
That's
and
like
make
extra
them really
fried
love
rice right there.
Yeah. So then there was the fried rice. And then lastly, my grandmother's chicken, which was for me like a really technique-driven Filipino dish. And I think a lot of people don't think about technique when they think about Filipino food because we think a lot about raised meats.
You're so right. It's
really interesting.
It's like people think of like the stews mostly, but
which are great.
And there's technique there. Yeah, the idea of technique and Asian cuisine,
especially Filipino food.
Yeah,
like when I learned how to make this dish, it's chicken relleno. It was a version of my grandmother's dish.
Yeah.
It's basically a chicken galantine, but it's like a galantine that's also stuffed with eggs, and it's just a beautiful cross section. And people don't normally think about Filipino food as being technique driven, so that was like really important to me.
Yeah, How do you break through with a dish in this like super noisy world where I think it's like so difficult to create something new and fresh, but as a creative director of a restaurant group, a hotel group, you need to do this time after time after time.
Yeah.
How do you think about that challenge?
Well, I think that the site-specific aspect that we mentioned earlier makes something really unique. For example, this was really, really simple and came up maybe 2 days before the event happened, but we did a bear event during Pride at the beer garden, and that was really fun for me to try to prepare because typically the beer garden has a specific type of guy that likes sports and like, drinking tons of beer.
Garden on the
yeah,
line.
like
yeah,
and
totally.
I like that. I like that there's a place for everybody.
Yeah.
But I also like this idea of bringing in some bears and then specifically thinking about hosts that were friends of mine that I could reach out to. They're called Massive, and they sell queer Japanese manga. And a lot of people that are models for some of their apparel are these like POC bears, these like Asian bears. And so I love this idea of like Asian bears or POC bears because when we think about bears too, we think about Folsom Street, and there's like this type of guy that isn't like the type of Massive guy that we know.
Yeah.
And so we had the Massive crew in there, and then last minute I decided that I would work with Chef Kevin at the grill on making onigiri, so like the triangular shaped Japanese rice balls, but then throw in our really good hot dogs in it to make it like protrude out. So it was just like this funny moment, like a hot dog onigiri
with bears.
Yeah, and it's like we had Asian bears in the space, and it's a place that we have pretzels and sausages. So let's make that happen. And then something really special happened that I did not think would ever happen, but Kobayashi, who's the champion hot dog eater, was there and like doing this photo op, like sort of deep throating this hot dog onigiri. And I was like, this is insane, because I always loved just this concept of this like small Japanese dude for years when I was living in New York City at like 20, being able to eat so many hot dogs.
Free Kobayashi. Like, he's been banned from competing in that competition because he refuses to obey by the Shea Brothers rules. And like, let's just say free Kobayashi on the Taste Podcast.
I don't know about I don't know about this what I don't know this about this like
the 4th of July eating competition.
Yeah, he's
Joey
banned.
Chestnut's won several years in a row.
Yeah,
Kobayashi hasn't been able to compete because
he's too good.
Well, they won't pay. Like, he wanted more money. Like, those guys who run it, it's like kind of like wrestling. Like, they dictate the contracts, and Kobayashi's like, fuck that. I want my money, and it hasn't really worked out. So he's around during 4th of July and Pride. He's around New York during that time frame, but he's not competing.
Oh, I love it. You know so much about. Thank you.
Do competitive eating is rad.
Yeah.
A question about bears. Have you seen the St. Vincent video, Slow Disco, the remix?
Yeah, actually.
Do you know that video? It's rad.
I was just shown the video by our chief creative officer Landis and Liz Lambert from the Standard also. So they showed me the video, so I hadn't seen it. Everyone knows about this video.
It's a really good video. I like the original song better. The remix is, I'm not feeling it so much. Just this is not a music podcast, but I just had to say that.
It's important.
But it's cool. I mean, you're clearly creating these spaces that are so original and inclusive. And is that a big part of your mission? I mean, you want Standard to be an inclusive space, right?
Yeah, that's super important to me, just because I think that's, whether people know it or not, that's also, I think, what we want hotels to be like as well. And being in the hospitality industry in general, being a chef, that's always been important to me since I was allowed to make decisions that way. When I was a line cook, you kind of just think and not. You're only allowed to just do and not think. And then once you become a chef and a leader in a kitchen, there's so many ways that you can influence a restaurant as a living, breathing space. And then, moreover, now with me working with hotels, this is another opportunity to do this in a bigger way. And so that means also thinking about nightlife, which is something I really like, that somehow I'm someone that is a part of the nightlife world. I don't even really know how that happened. And a lot of it was my initial interest in throwing my own parties. I was like interested in throwing POC lesbian fronted parties. And that now being asked to host lots of different parties. Like, I've been interested in New York City nightlife, but never.
And now you have your own
organizer.
Spaces.
Yeah.
I mean, on the Standard at Highline, you've got incredible spaces for parties there, right?
Yeah, and there's like a bunch of different places for different reasons that we could throw parties.
Yeah.
I'm doing like a swimsuit design, and we're launching it at Lebain. I had an announcement party, and we had it at Top of the Standard. I love the view. I mean, it's important for me to bring in like my like community into those spaces.
Those spaces haven't, in my perception, I'm not a nightlife guy, but I feel like those spaces have not been as inclusive as you're aiming for. But with you being a creative director of those spaces, I'm really hopeful.
Yeah, and
it's
they
exciting.
just will, because we'll be organizing parties at those spaces. So it's like I don't know, it's a dream to be able to. That room is insane.
La Bain is a dope room. Yeah, it's a great room. Tell me about collaborations. I mean, are you still working with Ariel Johnson on the Fermentation Project?
Yeah, so we actually were just emailing.
I love Ariel. She's amazing.
She's like, one of like, my favorite people in the world.
She like shot me down on Twitter when I tweeted some dumb shit about MSG. Like I like sided with somebody who said something dumb, and she was like just like straight up like, you're nonsense. And I was like, I respect that about Ariel Johnson. Yeah,
and she'll shut people down. And I think that's a big reason why we've gotten along, because we always think about our work in these male, it's still male dominated. And, I don't think that's a tired thing to say, because it's still true. And so we really relate on that level, where we can just talk about the work that we do, or what we're trying to do for the food world, or her with food and science, or culture specifically. She gets it. And she's someone that I think is a huge force.
Yeah. So what are you working on with her? What is the Fermentation Project? I know she's is authoring a book on fermentation, but what do you plan to do with her?
So we have been working on a project to do the first fermentation food safety plan in New York City. And so we've been working with Meta in Brooklyn, because they have a huge
restaurant.
Yeah. They ferment so many different things. And so we've been working with them on creating a food safety plan. So it's been fun, because we'll take these meetings, but then just nerd out on different processes.
I mean, that's like not sexy work. You're not going to be on the cover of a magazine for doing a food safety plan, but it just shows that it's an altruistic move. You really want more folks to be able to get certified, because I think fermentation is all about sneaking around the rules, right?
Yeah, and that's not fun. Like,
not fun.
There's a fun aspect when you're 20 and you're like going to bars and trying to get in. But like, this is about like pushing the food industry forward and thinking about how people could think about, probiotics that are created in the fermentation process. They make the food flavorful. And so that just gives everyone opportunity. The idea behind that is gives everyone opportunity to think about how we can all utilize these processes in a way that's flavor focused. And we all love these flavors, and a lot of, and so if we're doing that for a place like Meta, the idea is that other places can follow suit and
actually have like approved lockers and be able to like show off their fermentation projects and not have to put them in these,
and hide them or throw them away.
When the cops come by, the police cops.
Cops,
Speaking of regulation, what do you think about the activated charcoal ban in New York?
I didn't even know about that. I just read about it because you let me know about it. I've always been interested in it as a it's not. The funny thing is, it's not. For me, it's not for flavor.
It's an aesthetic thing.
It's an aesthetic, but I always enjoyed it. But it could be paired with flavor. For example, Mission did a collaboration with Black Seed back in like 2014. They did like chef collaborations, and we made a black bagel, but it was also seasoned with squid ink. So there was this layer of like fishy funk to it, which I also really liked. And so I think that was super important. That's like where my interest level with charcoal lied, is that it can sort of amplify. Like if you think about a red lollipop, you're like cherry. So squid ink, you think black, and the activated charcoal. Yeah, exactly. The activated charcoal really just elevates that. So it was like a white poppy seed bagel, Iberico ham, and kefir cultured butter with anchovy. So it was very like for me, these trends and health trends. I think there's always a layer of like their utility and purpose within food. I've thought about that a lot. Similarly with adaptogens, like thinking about ashwagandha. It's a de-stressor. I think the best way for me to talk about adaptogens is that it's kind of like a more local version of how we can think about Chinese medicinal herbs as like Westerners. And so people use it in powdered extract form and not for flavor. They'll just throw it into a smoothie, which I really appreciate that. Like I do it as well.
What are some over-the-counter like
reishi,
products,
like things like reishi, cordyceps. There's a lot, but the cool thing is that there is a woman who sells fresh adaptogen, fresh dried from Pennsylvania, from Furnace Creek Farms. Seeing the gnarled root, in the pure form, not in this beautiful jar that's like $40, which again, I still appreciate that. I think for me as a chef, I think it's interesting to think about the whole root that we could get locally at the Union Square Green Market and then cook with it for flavor. I think it kind of goes like this activated charcoal conversation is interesting because it goes into this other realm of flavor or what is wellness, like how do we use this in cooking? And I like that people got really weird with it and put it in
but then it got
drink.
banned all of a sudden because the cops just they didn't want it. There was like some potential links to diseases, etc. But
yeah, I mean, I get that too. Like I've known people that also take activated charcoal as supplements, and then it did really well for their bodies and their digestion. But then, I've known a friend that like recommended to another person and then it made them feel sick. So like I get that it's tricky. Like these things are tricky, but I like that people got interested in it for people to rethink about what food should look like and what we should be consuming. So I like that challenge. I think it's fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. We always ask this question on the Taste Podcast. Angela, give us your dream cookbook project. What cookbook do you want to write?
I don't know. I wish I had. I mean, I have an idea of what plural these cookbooks are.
A series, a set.
Yeah, well, there would be. I want to write cookbooks, plural.
Yeah.
I have ideas on what they are. So I kind of don't want to talk about
this.
them.
This is a safe space. Come on, man.
I don't know. I mean, I've definitely, I really want to explore Filipino food for sure. I have a bank of recipes from my grandmother that are amazing. And my grandmother, she turned 100 and passed away this year. And her recipes were often written just from her like verbal conversation. So if you hadn't had her dish, her specific dish, or don't know how to cook, like and can just understand a recipe just by having a conversation with someone, these recipes are very difficult to discern and follow. But I tested one out recently, and since I remember exactly how they taste and what it should look like, it was really executable for me. And I was freaking out because I made palabok. It's like this Filipino dish that's made with a chicken gravy basically on top of it. You cook chicken till it's completely broken down and almost like threads, and then it's colored with annatto, and it's really fragrant and rich.
Yeah.
But I was really freaking out because I was making it for like some esteemed Filipino writers.
Okay.
And I was worried that I wouldn't be able to do it, but was able to do it. So I want to break down my grandmother's recipes. I want to share them. That's something that I would like to do. But there's a lot of ideas.
I'd love to hear that. Do you make kinilaw at all?
I don't know kinilaw. I think it's from a region that my parents are not from. Want to tell me about it?
Well, I had it at St. Yeah, it was like raw. It was a raw piece of fish, but it was cured, and then it was a coconut cream sauce to it. And I just remember Genevieve at Bad St. in DC was telling me about it, and I was like, man, I've never had these two flavors together with Filipino cuisine. There's like many of these dishes.
There's so many regional flavors that are something I want to explore too. Like, I mean, the food that my grandmother makes comes from Pampanga specifically. And so regionally, there's just so much information out there. Yeah. And then we think about the Philippines in general and like how many times it's been colonized and like what these flavors are. It's like the flavors are insane because the origins of the dishes could be, somewhere like specifically in Spain or a Chinese dish. I love that we think about these cuisines, these ethnic cuisines, but there's so much diversity that we just don't know about. Like I met this woman that's Haitian Jamaican, and then she was talking to me about Jamaican cuisine and talking to me about specifically Chinese Jamaican food, and I didn't know anything about that. I was super intrigued because she mentioned to me about her great-grandfather who is Chinese, and I was like looking at her, I'm like, oh yeah, you totally do look like you're part Chinese. And she mentioned that, post-slavery in Jamaica, there were a bunch of Chinese indentured servants that lived in Jamaica, and then there's this cuisine that I want to taste her food because, she's cooking with that background of like this hyphenated these flavors. Yeah, and I'm like super intrigued.
Well, I hope you can write the book. I hope you can research these topics because you clearly are so passionate about this. Angela, thank you for joining the Taste Podcast.
In our next segment, we are talking to Deb Perelman of Smitten Kitchen and asking her a question from a reader.
So, what is your favorite non-photogenic food? As in, like, reverse food porn?
Ooh. Pretty much anything with a gravy on it. I mean, everybody knows gravy tastes amazing, but it's not the prettiest thing to look at. I actually have a dish in my second book. It's sort of a Swedish-ish meatball. So it's got that gray brown beige sauce, and it tastes so good, but it's definitely like
Gray doesn't really play well on the
yeah.
gray.
I mean, it's not gray. It's just not a very rich color beige either. So it's beige. It's a thick beige sauce on meatballs, so you can imagine.
Also, David Chang has got his Ugly Delicious. Are you familiar with this meme?
Yes, I have not watched the show yet.
Right.
It's like waiting
It
for me.
started as a meme on Instagram.
Oh, I didn't realize.
He was tagging these posts. It was like, it was usually Korean food, a lot of these like bubbling stews, but sometimes it was just like melted cheese on chips and stuff like that. And he calls it Ugly Delicious, which I think is very genius of him because there's lots of food in our world that is ugly and delicious. Do you have any other examples of ugly, delicious food?
Oh, what is ugly? I feel like scrambled eggs are quite ugly. And
Yep.
risotto just generally is not a very pretty looking thing. Anything that's porridgey, where it's not smooth but it's not firm either, is just going to be a little bit problematic.
The mushification of foods, I feel like, has once we go mush, we lose all the aesthetic
And pretty
value.
much anything with mushrooms is like a little bit problematic because they're going to cook up kind of gray brown.
Yeah, it's like that gray brown color scheme that doesn't work quite well. The reds work well. The contrasts work well.
Absolutely.
Do you subscribe to like food porn? Do you follow like the trends? Like, you know, for one example, like the overhead food shot is over. Some have said.
Oh, is it?
They've said that. Some have
That's
said
really
that.
funny. Well, maybe it's just gotten done to death. I
so.
think it's a weird world we live in that we can have food trends and that things can be over, like a way of looking at your food. Like what a world we live in that we have so much food that we can get like bored of it, that we can call that out of style to eat that kind of thing. That said, yes, of course. I mean, I have a good food website. I basically am immersed in it way more than I wish to be. And I think that you just see something done to death. And I know that the Ugly Delicious is great because it's a great pushback on like, you know, Instagram kind of turned everybody into amateur food stylists, which is great. But sometimes you're looking at the picture and you're like, this is a beautifully lit, absolutely gorgeous picture of, is that a rusty spoon? Like, why would I eat this with a rusty spoon? Like, and you realize when you're looking up close, it's sort of weird.
Or edible dirt or soils. Like the idea of like the soil that comes with this like vegetable dish. I don't know if you've seen that in restaurant menus.
What was the Julie Child where she said like, it's a beautiful dish, but you know, somebody's fingers have been all over it. Like when you see smears and stuff like that, it's just a strange thing.
It's a strange thing. Well, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. The Taste Podcast is hosted by Anna Hezel and myself, Matt Rodbard. It is produced by Gabrielle Lewis. Our theme music is by Steve Rydell. Interviews are recorded live at Books Are Magic in Cobble Hill, Brooklyn. Special thanks to Books Are Magic fan Emma, Michael, and Mike. Confidence wine supplied by Smith & Vine. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com. Tune in next week.